And let us pray. Aramim ka Adonai ki dilitani. Adonai Elohai la'olam odeka amen. I will extol you, O Lord, for you have drawn me up. O Lord my God, I will give thanks to you forever. Amen. We are in our second week of Advent, friends, as we are preparing for the coming of Christ, right? This is the season where we take the time and remember that babies don't just show up. You have to prepare for them. You got to get ready. And so we're taking the time as we prepare for the coming of the light of God into the world, that we look at the ways that we can honor the coming of that light and how we remember that in our daily lives. So last week we looked at the hope and the light, the hope that the light brings into the world. And today we look at the peace, and particularly the peace that comes in the midst of the promise of darkness, because we know that God is present in the light and in the dark at the same time. And so today we come to this reading out of Matthew, where we're talking much more about Joseph than we're talking about Mary. And I think perhaps it's an interesting thing, because we think about how Mary was told by Gabriel, the angel that appeared, and do not be afraid, and the amazing experience that Mary had in that moment a lot. We're going to do that one in a couple weeks, trust me. But less often do we talk about Joseph's reaction to Mary being pregnant, right? We know in Matthew that Joseph knows that Mary is pregnant, but I was wondering, how does Joseph know, right? Does Mary come and tell him, hey, Joseph, guess what's going to happen? And then he's sitting there going, really? Does he hear it around town? Does Mary, how does he hear? And we don't exactly know, but what we do know is his initial reaction, right? Joseph finds out that Mary is pregnant. He knows he's not the father. And so he sits back and he says, okay, really what I think I'll do is I will quietly break off the engagement, because I don't want to ruin her any more than I absolutely have to here, but I'm really not sure I can handle this. But it is in a dream that Joseph gets a clearer picture of the whole story, that allows him to say, this is going to be okay, and let's go ahead and do this thing. So I got to say, dreams are funny things, right? There are some people I know who very, very rarely ever remember their dreams. You may be one of them. But there are other people who remember their dreams very, very, very vividly. I am one of those people. In fact, I am somewhat notorious for the people who get here at, 8:30, 8:45 on a Sunday morning for what we have started calling my Saturday night stress dreams. They are wild, friends. They are wild. And they're disconnected, and yet in the midst of them all, there is some kind of nugget of truth. It may be that I am preaching in a church that's like 500 people larger than this, and not remembering my sermon, because that happens occasionally in my dreams. Or it may be that I'm making donuts that turn into bagels, and then there's lox involved somehow. That was last night, in case anyone's curious. But always, in the midst of these crazy, vivid dreams, there is some kind of nugget of truth that shines a light into whatever situation is going on in my world. I think perhaps Joseph's dream felt something a little bit like that, right? You imagine Joseph waking up in the morning and going to his friends and going, okay, so I had the craziest dream last night. You are not going to believe what happened. An angel appeared to me in a dream, right? It probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But as he reflected on it, he found a greater peace and a way forward for his life and for Mary's life that felt authentic. It felt God-inspired, right? In the dream, Joseph is told, Mary will have a son, and you, Joseph, will call him Jesus. And that's what happened. Now, our theme is in light and in darkness. And last week we talked a lot about light, but today is about the darkness, because it's those times of darkness that I think we really fully experience what it is to dream. Those times of darkness in the night when, for many people, we settle down. And it allows us to connect with the world a little bit differently, right? There is the expectation at night of stillness, of silence, of a degree of solitude. I'm constantly telling my kids, friends, it's dark outside, go settle down. It is in the darkness that we are able to experience God in the dream, because there is peace there that brings us closer to God. We can see God a whole new way in the midst of the darkness. Think about the stars of the sky that shine all day long, that we only see when the sun goes down and it is night. And now our darkness doesn't have to be literal. It can also be the metaphorical darkness, right? We can find peace and inspiration in those hard times of life, when those times when we're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's happening. When the world is spinning around me, yes, there is peace. When things are changing beyond all recognition and we're not sure what's going on, yes, there's peace. In those times in our lives where everything is turned upside down, that is when we call out to God and say that we really need help, that we really need inspiration, that all of a sudden we realize that those changes we've known we probably needed to make are easier to make because of the darkness. So, as a people of God, I think we are called to embrace the darkness now and again, to have those hard times, to ask those hard questions, and to know that God is shining in the midst of them, that God is standing in the midst of that darkness, that God is welcoming us every step of the way. I know darkness isn't always easy. You may have heard me say that November was trying to kill me. Anybody? It tried really, really hard, November, right? We've now made it to December. December's not going to do that. November was really dark. We had some really hard conversations in November as a congregation. We had some really hard things that we faced as a congregation in November. But they're things that we can't avoid in life. We can't avoid the hard decisions. We can't avoid the hard conversations. We cannot avoid death. The question becomes, how is it that we approach the darkness? How is it that we seek God? How is it that we allow ourselves to dream the crazy dreams in the midst of the darkness, that we can seek inspiration, that we can see the peace of God all around us? So today, let us be that people, walking together in the darkness, knowing that God is calling out, knowing that God is giving us wisdom and inspiration every step of the way, knowing that we are God's people, and God is calling us to the peace, the calm, the stillness of night. And so let us reach out and be willing to accept and hear that inspiration every day of our lives. Amen.